Imagine living fearlessly. You're focused on the things you love and you're letting go of the rest. Welcome to the Dissolving Fear podcast, where fear doesn't run the show, you do. And fear doesn't run this show. I'm your host, Miss Alissa Shirk. And if you're new here, welcome to the podcast. I love to share inspiring guest interviews and stories from my own life as a mom, teacher, life coach, and someone who is truly thriving despite anxiety. So if you want to feel strong, courageous, and true to yourself, tune in. You can shift from fear-based thoughts and actions to a life grounded in things you love and get the most positive outcomes possible. As you grow and evolve, your fears dissolve. Loving life is what we're all about here at the podcast and at missalissa.com. Enjoy the show. Theresa, Lear, Levine, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me, Alissa. I'm glad to be here.
It's an honor to have you here today. I'm excited to have you because personally, I want to absorb your knowledge and expertise because I do want to thrive in life and in my career. Even though I think I have ADHD, I think a lot of listeners tuning in think that they might have ADHD, and anxiety that creeps in on a daily basis makes it hard to stay grounded and true to themselves. How can you help us with all of this today? And how do you go about helping clients with their own ADHD? I know that's a big question.
When somebody finds me and they have ADHD, they're usually wanting help with it, right? And there can be a combination of things that are happening, whether they're feeling exhausted or anxious or scattered. And yeah, a lot of follow through. I get a lot of follow through, procrastination, self-sabotage kind of things that feel like they're aspects of this. So it's never about fixing that, right? But it's about helping people to work with their brain and their nervous system instead of constantly fighting against it. So a lot of that starts with regulation or nervous system nourishment, and also, safety. A lot of the things that we have issues with when it comes to follow through and procrastination and self-sabotage have to do with our own feelings that we're not somehow safe with whatever the outcome might be if we were to follow through or actually do the thing. So as far as tools go, I love using EFT tapping. I love using hypnotherapy and really using the subconscious mind to help with some of the things that are going on in the brain, especially to do with ADHD, because we can really kind of calm that buzzing, spinning, busy-mindedness and teach the body that, hey, you know what? We're safe here, even if it feels like, or maybe literally, there's 113 tabs open in the brain or on our computer or whatever else. And once the nervous system feels less under attack, then things like focus and creativity and decision-making skills come back online more easily and naturally improve.
That's so interesting because I don't know if anyone listening is like me. Like I have the creativity, but I don't have like the focus and follow through. Yeah. And there's so many things about us. I mean, I remember one time I saw my friend's computer at work. She had like 5 emails in her inbox and like one tab open. And I was like, people actually do that? Oh my gosh.
To that at all. I think I put a tab counter extension on the other day because somebody asked me how many tabs were actually open, and there's too many for me to actually see how many. But if I look at my Chrome extension or whatever right now, I have 134 open right now.
Well, you
So,
help entrepreneurs and people with ADHD grow their businesses. You are a trauma-informed EFT master practitioner, and I love EFT. You guys, EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Technique, right?
it's emotional freedom techniques,
Yeah.
plural, and you've got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's a bunch of different ways that we can approach things with tapping. So it is plural, but yeah, it's all
Oh,
about
and I love your book right behind you, your book, Tapping into Success. Well, the title is Becoming More Me, Tapping into Success. You've wrote a book, and we will talk about EFT tapping to process our emotions, to calm the nervous system, and to ultimately free ourselves. But first, Theresa, tell us about yourself. How did you get into this work? Did you have like a low point where the ADHD was just taking over, or how did you get into it?
It's been a journey, right? And that's really a lot of the reason why I ended up writing my book, to kind of share some of that. But, a lot of it came from not understanding my own energy system in my earlier years. And getting into some different experiences in life, whether that was, getting married early and young when I wasn't really totally aligned with the person that I was marrying, and recognizing in that the ways that I felt kind of like I was betraying myself.
Mhm.
And around the same time in my life, I also had several car accidents that made it so that I couldn't work the job in banking that I'd been doing at the time, and had to kind of explore other things, including my own physical healing at that time. And a lot of things that just really kind of like took my reality, or what I thought was my reality, and just kind of knocked it out from under me and made me think about things differently, and kind of sent me on a bit of a spiritual wandering. And as I was doing all of that, also recognizing that, hey, this nervous system thing, like what is this? Like how is it's almost like a whole other body that we're never taught about. And it's the first part of us that forms, and then realizing, okay, so that's the first part that forms. And then so many of us have all of these like past issues that tend to be entangled with our lower chakras, our root chakra, our lower energy portals and things. And
Yeah, the
they're
safety and security. The root chakra is like where you feel safe and secure and creative. Yeah.
exactly. So it was some life circumstances that got me there. And also because, just like you, I've always been kind of that creative one with a million ideas, and having issues on the follow through, right?
Mm.
So this work gave me a way to resolve my own past traumas and kind of disentangle from that. It gave me a way to stop future pacing and step out of that anxiety lens, because I would say high functioning anxiety is kind of how I would describe the way that I was living for quite a while, and kind of that performance and push and strive, masculine sort of energy of, let's get things done. But yeah, there was kind of a season when it felt like things all kind of came together, between chronic pain and, going through the divorce, getting remarried, I had my first child in my first marriage, and my other three boys in my now marriage. And just thinking like, hey, I know I'm intelligent. I know I'm capable. Why does it feel like this like Groundhog Day of survival mode that's on repeat?
Mhm.
Like, why am I not feeling like I'm getting that traction and that movement forward that I'm craving? And I was devouring personal development, right? I've always loved the self-help books. I was actually joking with a friend the other day because I was like, I had to just go like download a stupid romance novel because I just need to not listen to more self-help books right now. I just need to listen to something that's mindless and enjoy it, and just whatever. But I was devouring that. I was working in fitness and nutrition mostly at that time, and helping and coaching people with that, which for me was like helping people with more surface level things, their physical health, their behaviors and actions and things on a more like, we're going to lose weight or change in appearance or that kind of a thing. And recognizing that those people that really wanted and needed more of my help weren't resolving the issues that were deeper down that would actually change things for them. And I was experiencing that too, and just really wanting a deeper dive into things. And, I felt change once I started, doing tapping. It was like the first time that I felt change, not just in my thinking, but in my body. It was like all the noise turned down, and the things that used to send me kind of spiraling, just they felt more neutral, right? Because I kind of became my own guinea pig with all of it, and started using it for everything: pain, anxiety, procrastination, money, blocks, fear, mom guilt, all that kind of stuff. And just watched all of these long standing patterns start to really transform. And yeah, I was like, I want to help other people to do this too.
Wow, that's amazing. That's how I felt in my first yoga class. Like when I was 16, I just went to yoga and I felt so relaxed. Like you said, like everything was more neutral. The anxiety wasn't running the show. It wasn't running my thoughts and giving me the buzzing in my body, and it was amazing. And if anyone listening, hasn't had that experience, tune in, you guys. We're going to do some tapping. We're going to put some resources in the show notes and episode description because I really do want that for people. And I think I might have told you, I interviewed a prisoner and her case manager because Chesterfield County Jail, actually the jail, it's very famous on the East Coast. They're famous for doing tapping, and they're famous for the prisoners not coming back. They like don't, commit crimes and go back to what they've been doing. Housing's the biggest problem, but they don't come back because they have that skill of tapping. Anyway, so I just love tapping. I think it's completely life-changing. And yeah, I agree with you. Like you feel it in your body. You feel, oh my gosh, I don't have to feel so scattered. I don't have to feel so anxious. And whatever gives you that feeling, that is just as important as like a shift in mindset for sure.
Yeah.
One thing I'm guilty of, and I think my listeners can relate to, is overcomplicating things. So, you wrote a book, you know how to get the job done. How can we simplify our projects and make our dreams feel manageable and doable if we tend to be easily overwhelmed with the ADHD or anxiety?
Yeah. So the biggest lesson that I learned there, because I mean, overwhelm is usually what happens when we overcomplicate things, right? And overwhelm really only happens when we're getting ahead of ourselves and ahead of the present moment that we're in and trying to figure out how, oh, I got to do this step today, but then I'll do other things. And learning to get present, which I know tapping and also hypnotherapy really helped me with and helped me realize how much I wasn't present in so many things. Unfortunately, like parenting and such, where it was like this light bulb went on when I could come back into my body. So, figuring out how to like get more present and then slow down. And that was so hard for me at first, but slowing down allows us to get the traction we need to be able to do all those things that feel like they're overcomplicated. And I can totally relate to that. It's overcomplicating things is actually a very intelligent nervous system strategy that's like so many things trying to keep us safe, right? And it's like if I can just think of every angle, every what if, every possible outcome, then maybe I won't get blindsided, right?
Mhm.
So first we have to stop making ourselves wrong for it. And then from there, we can bring in more regulation in our body. Notice where we're feeling a little bit dysregulated. If we're trying to make a decision, maybe we need to ask some questions to ourselves about that kind of thing. Hey, when I imagine taking this next step or making this decision, what do I notice in my body? Does it soften? Does it tighten? What's happening in my jaw? Just notice what's going on as you're making decisions if you imagine yourself making them, and shrink that time horizon down a little bit. Like I said, like when we get an overwhelm when we're too far ahead of ourselves, and our brain loves to complicate by zooming out, right? So it starts thinking like, what does this thing that we're trying to do mean for like our whole life or our whole business, instead of just like, it's just like one decision right now. So like, what would make things just, 5% better with this decision? Not all year, not for whatever like the big picture thing is, but just, what's the next small move that you can make? It might just be an email that you need to send, or maybe you just need to drink some water, or, do some tapping for a couple of minutes. What's going to make the next step easier and more regulated, so that you can have big visions, but you can take small steps.
Mhm.
If that makes sense. And then to pattern interrupt, right? And that's something that EFT is great for. Because sometimes people can overcomplicate that too. But, you can make things very, very simple with the tapping or whatever else. And those little steps are really going to start to help calm that charge that happens when overcomplication is felt.
Mhm.
And then your system can stop screaming for like more data, like, and just do the thing. So simplifying is not about like dumbing anything down, but it is about bringing the decisions out of like the spinny mind and into the body.
Yeah.
Where
And I love what you said about pattern interrupting. So for everyone listening, this is my take on it with the EFT tapping is like if you start worrying about like, say this summer, it's December right now. If I start worrying about, well, like, what about the summer? What about the summer? Tapping, it interrupts the pattern because you say to yourself as you tap on different points, like, even though I'm worried about the summer, I am safe right now. you know? And so that is how, and Theresa will get into this more, but that's how you interrupt the pattern. As you say, even though I'm having this issue right now, I am capable or I am safe. So that's my perception of how you use EFT to interrupt the pattern. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, when you're in overcomplication or overwhelm, it could be, even though part of me is saying I should have all of this done by now, or I should have all of this figured out by now. I love,
Mhm.
accept, and forgive myself. And, you tap towards just being okay with like taking that next step. That's all you can really ever do anyway.
Yeah. And I love the saying, like, I'll take a step and the path will appear, and I'll take the next step and the path will appear. So if you can tell yourself something like that too, like, okay, well, I'm going to decide what to do next, one thing to do next, and then the next step will appear. I love your whole body approach. We can find calm in our body. We can do practices with our body to feel grounded and stable and capable. Is there anything else that maybe you could share with my audience that they could use today?
Yeah, I love working with people on their vision because we can spend time in, EFT and hypnotherapy knocking out what I like to call like the negative underliers, whether that's past trauma or future pacing or things that are even happening right here and now that are causing discomfort or anxiety or whatever else. But then we also want to figure out what is it that we are knocking this stuff out of the way to bring in. What do we really want to manifest? And what is the reason why the transformation is so important to us? And when I'm helping people with that, we're often looking at the ways that we can create positive questions instead of just affirmative statements, because
Mhm.
sometimes affirmations can be like this giant leap for the brain, right?
Mhm.
I'm a huge fan of them. And I'm also aware that sometimes they don't work the way we want them to, right? So a lot of the ADHD entrepreneurial women that I work with, the anxious, overthinking ones, those traditional affirmations can backfire, right? Where they're saying, "Oh, I'm calm, I'm confident, I'm focused," but in our head, we're the no, actually, I'm kind of like, thinking about summer while it's winter, and I'm doing all these other things that don't
Mhm.
quite align with where I want to be. There's this mismatch, right? And our nervous system doesn't buy it, and so it rejects a lot of those things that we're trying to affirm. So I
Mhm.
really love coming up with questions that can assume that what you want is already in motion instead of forcing a statement into your system that it doesn't believe, and just feeding your brain a question so that that part of your brain, the reticular activating system, is going to look for answers for you all day
Mhm.
long, even while you're sleeping, right? So, instead of saying, um, like if you're somebody who's always like, oh, I never follow through or something like that, and you have this feeling or this belief that is something that you want to transform, and you can notice that when you think a thought like that I never follow through, your brain starts bringing you all those examples of those times when you didn't follow through, right? So if you turn it around and you ask a question like, why is it getting easier for me to follow through on the things that matter to me? And that's something that you put out there every day, either by listening. When I work with my clients, we create these really cool audios that are set to binaural beats that they listen to, that they usually recreate about quarterly, that has all aspects of life and business covered with these subconscious questions and affirmations that their subconscious will accept, and some other elements of visualization. But those kind of things, a question like that is a great thing for you to hear or say every day. If there's a good subconscious question, you can put it on your mirror where you brush your teeth or whatever, and just say that and notice how your brain starts noticing those things instead of the other side of the coin. Or, why am I starting to feel safer taking one small step instead of needing the whole plan? Or
Mhm.
like, why is it becoming more natural for me to be present right now, even when my brain wants to time travel and be somewhere else? So those kind of questions can be really, really helpful for bringing vision to life and really manifesting the things that we want by getting our brain to go look for those answers for us.
So your book is called Becoming More Me, Tapping into Success, Subconscious Secrets of an ADHD Entrepreneurial Mom. Theresa, you are a mom of four. Tell us a helpful story or concept from your book that you could share.
Oh, goodness. Um, the thing that I have loved as far as being a mom and doing this work is seeing the way that it does impact my family. Because at the end of the day, that's the entire reason, right? For me to start a business, for me to work in the way that I do, I want to be a good example. Obviously, I want to create an abundant and amazing life for my family and contribute to that. And then when I get to see the way that that comes back, and I have four boys, and time that we're recording, they're between 8 and 20. So a range. And my youngest is probably the one that has been most open to actually doing these practices with me. Whereas the older ones, yeah, you know what mom's doing. Most kids don't really want to do. It's like, we'll just do whatever mom's not doing. But I still see it. I still see it rub off on them. I still see the way that they seek out things that calm their body and their mind because they've been given that example. And I tell a story in the book about, stopping at this flower patch on the side of the road with my kids. It's right outside of our neighborhood, and they do this really cool thing where they grow like this huge patch of zinnias every year, and they put out scissors and vases and all sorts of things, and it's just stop
Oh,
and cut the flowers and take what you want or whatever. And the summer that we were writing the book, my oldest wanted to stop there often to get bouquets for a girl he was seeing and stuff like that, and my youngest loved to pick the flowers too. But we had been talking about mindfulness at some, I guess, dinners that we were having and things, and noticing the way that my youngest was just seeing everything while we were there. I was like, wow, it's such a beautiful day, and these flowers are so colorful, and I love being here with you. And it was just like all these things that he was reflecting back, and he was just so present in the moment, and he knew that, and at this point, it's so cool to me to hear, like, when I go in for parent teacher conferences or whatever about any of my kids, like, wow, they're really like emotionally intelligent, and they seem to understand things on a deeper level than most kids their age, and that kind of thing. And I'm like, that's what it's all about for me. So that's been a great takeaway for me as a mom doing this work, that they get to benefit from it in that way, and that they also get to learn the business side of things. My 12-year-old always is like, hey, are you hiring yet? Can I work for you? Can I come help you with your YouTube channel, or can I do your social media or whatever else? So the fact that they all think it's actually pretty cool and they want to be a part of it in one way or another or learn from it, that's what makes my day.
that's how you get street cred with the kids. I mean, I teach high school, special ed full time, so I do know a lot about ADHD, but that's how you get the cred. I have like 10K followers on TikTok. That's more impressive than my master's degree. Like, oh my gosh.
When it comes to the kids, it sure is.
But yeah, I know what you mean. They more is caught than taught. Like our kids, they catch on to what we're doing and they're like little parrots. They repeat the things that we say and do. I
Yeah.
mean, just 100%. If I'm never like complaining about drivers when I drive, like we're always talking about like how beautiful the sky is, the lake, we're reflecting on the day. And I wasn't brought up like that. I was brought up, sometimes parents they just involve their children in their drama. And so kudos to you and to me
Yeah.
for
I mean,
focusing our kids on things that could actually like help them grow more.
yeah, and I'm definitely not saying I'm a perfect parent in any way, shape, or form. In fact, EFT was probably first used to help me stop being that yelling mom, and it was amazingly effective with it. But it is cool when we can notice the upsides of that, and that they were a big inspiration for me wanting to transform and change and be more present.
Yeah, parenting is not easy, that's for sure. And you have four, and I only have two. So let's talk about EFT tapping, emotional freedom techniques. For everyone listening, I've done a few episodes about this. And tapping combines self-acceptance and compassionate statements with physical tapping on acupressure points such as temples, the top of your head, and it helps you find calm and focus, especially when you're faced with stress. So if you're craving something unhealthy, like a cigarette or junk food, it can kind of interrupt that pattern. It gives you like a step back and a moment to separate yourself from that impulse to go and do the thing that might not be good for you. So, Theresa, when do you normally do your EFT tapping? Do you have a morning routine, an evening routine, or is it just something you do like if you have a lot of emotions flying around? Tell us about your tapping, maybe how you use it in your life.
Yeah. So when I'm going to do my own tapping on my own issues, I normally do it in the morning before I get my kids up. I'm a very early riser. I'm up in like the 4 a.m. hour, and I get up and get my workout in and spend some time with my hubby before he leaves for work. And then I have time to work and time to tap and work on my own stuff if I need to. And then the second to that would be just when I need to. So if something has happened and I'm noticing that I'm feeling a charge, whether I'm, upset or all of a sudden I'm just feeling like blocked in my work or whatever, just take a pause for 5 minutes and knock out a round. And I normally feel better and can kind of start moving in a different direction. And as a practitioner, I would say the best way that I get to work is with others, because the coolest thing about EFT is that there's borrowed benefits from doing it. So even if I'm working with my clients on something that never happened to me, while we're tapping together and I'm coming up with their rounds and the stuff that we're, saying while we're going through it and they're starting to feel better, I'm also releasing things, right? And I might not even realize it until later. But the cool thing with EFT is that not only does it help with whatever you're focused on, but it's generally going to be lowering your cortisol levels, your stress hormones, as you're doing it. So even if you're not focused on any particular thing while you're doing it, stress hormones are going down and pretty much everything is going to feel a little bit lighter and a little bit like it has a new perspective. So yeah, I don't always do my own personal tapping every single day, but especially on the weeks where I'm working with my clients heavily, I get a lot of breakthroughs.
Hmm. That's lovely. Life can be so busy and chaotic. And do you have clients who like, in the mall or when they're in a noisy place, like they get overwhelmed and overstimulated, and so they use breathing or tapping for that? For me, I think just with ADHD, sometimes if I'm in like a loud room or something, I will get a little bit overwhelmed. It's like the empath, like I absorb all the energy. Do you ever have clients like that? And what advice do you give them for if they're overstimulated?
Yeah. So tapping is really good in the moment for things like that. And it can be done in ways that are way more discreet than like where you're tapping the top of your head or under your arm or whatever else. So we have these meridian endpoints where we can discharge that kind of chaotic energy throughout our body. So usually if we have people that either, a lot of times it'll be like family situations. In the last few weeks, there's been a lot of people that are like, oh, when I see my parents at Thanksgiving, or when I have to see this family member or that family member at the holidays, and gets a little bit crazy, or it's the flying and the traveling around the holidays that get people a little bit amped up. Uh, then I'll just teach them how to do tapping using the sides of their fingers, because we have great points on the sides of our fingertips by the nail beds that we can use. And you can do that like with one hand inside of a hoodie pocket while you're just thinking the thing, and work with the nervous system that way without it being really obvious. And then obviously if you have the way to get away from the situation, whether it's, stepping into a powder room at someone's house or into a public restroom or something where you can just go into a stall and just quietly actually do like a regular round of tapping, that can be really helpful too. I know I have a lot of clients who get a little bit worked up with like networking events or speaking engagements and things like that. So if they can just hop aside for a minute and calm their nervous system before it's time to network or engage and speak, they do a lot better.
I love that. Calm yourself before the stressful situation. Practice calming yourself before you're in the stressful situation and you're like, well, now I need to calm myself. That is what every expert I've had on this show for like 3 years has said. Like you have to practice the self-regulation so that when you're in the stressful situation, you're not just inventing it out of thin air. It's a go-to. It's a solid practice that you can rely on.
Yeah, I think it's also about just being a little bit more real and authentic in moments, which is another thing that my kids were great at helping me with. Because when I was really starting to work on myself and I would start behaving in a way that I didn't really want to behave, I would just have to start calling myself out
Mhm.
and say, oh, you know what? I really didn't want to, lose my temper or, get upset about that. I just need a minute to reset. Can we try again in a minute? And call myself out on it. And you can do the same thing in adult situations too. Like, hey, I notice I'm getting a little bit anxious. Would you mind if I just take a break for 2 minutes and then I can come back to this? Or, do you mind if I take a few deep breaths right now? together. Want to breathe with me? If we could all be a little bit more authentic and real about how we're actually feeling in the moment, I think we'd recognize that people understand more than we give
Yeah.
them credit for.
Yeah. Your Instagram is so fun, and you had a really neat post about decision fatigue, and I felt that for sure. We have so many decisions to make in life, and at work, I am actually very decisive at work. And I'm a great problem solver teaching high school special ed. But when it comes to like creative things, coaching, my podcast, my newsletter, all these technical things that we have to do to run a business, sometimes I have decision fatigue, and you help people who run businesses. There's no one right way to be creative. So, how can we overcome decision fatigue as creatives, as entrepreneurs?
That's a great question. And I can give us some suggestions, and I can also just be honest that I still sometimes encounter it. So
Mhm.
I don't think it's something that we overcome once and for all. But I do think that the more we can anticipate the decisions that we need to make and get aware around those things, that does bring in a lot more ease in that, simplifying things. I know that there are some days when I will lay my outfits out for the week, like, so I don't have to think about what I'm going to wear. Or when I'll be like, am I actually going to see the same person each day this week? Can I just wear the same thing for a few days? At least on my top half that Zoom gets to see. Like, does anybody really care? So every decision, like what we eat, what email we need to answer, what project we need to focus on, it costs the nervous system something, right? So when we're already on high alert, then each of those tiny little decisions gets processed like it's bigger than it is. And I think that's the important thing, is that, hey, by noontime, your brain's kind of fried and your internal battery is feeling low. And that's usually when we default to doing things that most of us wouldn't really call quality activities. We're either, scrolling or people pleasing just to make things happen, or avoiding things, um, doing the easy tasks that aren't important, that kind of a thing. And it's not because we're lazy, but it's because we're fried already, right? So with decision fatigue, first you want to regulate, right? Because if your body is in fight, flight, freeze, then even choosing what you need to have for lunch is going to feel threatening, right? So tapping is a great way to pattern interrupt, like we already talked about. If you notice that you're already stuck, and that's going to keep you out of a little bit of fatigue there, and then simplify the amount of decisions. A lot of my work is about helping women stop renegotiating the same things all day, right? If you can create more like decide once kind of structures, simple routines, default choices, that kind of thing, then you don't have to reinvent your life every morning, right?
Mhm.
And then you can start to upgrade your self-talk, like we've already kind of covered, and those subconscious questions, and to things like, hey, why is it getting easier for me to just choose one good enough option and move on?
Mhm.
And see what starts to upgrade there. And then when you combine the tools like EFT with that kinder and more curious self-talk, and maybe even some loving constraints or boundaries within your day, then the decision fatigue stops running the show. So you
Mhm.
don't need to, like you said, see the whole staircase or whatever else. You just need enough regulation to take the next step and to trust that that path will appear as you go.
Mhm. I found it helpful to see like what my mentors are doing and just ask my mentors for advice. You know what I mean? People who are farther along with their businesses and things like that. Like, who do you use to design your website? What do you do for a newsletter? Yeah, because there's so many options, and that can really contribute to the decision fatigue. And I know, like, as a teacher, because I teach full time, like, you just give them what they want. A teacher wants you to talk about communism, Vietnam, and Korea, you do it. You write 3 paragraphs about communism, Vietnam, and Korea. Like, but with creative entrepreneurship, nobody is telling you, like, well, just do these 3 things. So you have to give yourself the things to do. You have to give yourself a little to-do list and keep it simple. So sometimes that can be, I think, the challenge, because we don't know what to do next.
Yeah, Absolutely. And prioritization is a huge issue typically for ADHD brains. And then add in the whole entrepreneurial thing. And nobody's forcing deadlines down your throat most of the time. It's all self-imposed. And so you need to be able to decide what's important. But I think that circles back to what we covered as far as vision. If you know what your values are, if you know what your bigger picture is, then the steps line up really easily because you know what the purpose of what you're doing is. And then you can see what's important and you can see what's just a time suck and what's keeping you stuck and focus on the things that are actually going to create the life that you want to be living, the business that you want to have, and the feeling that you want, and everything really starts and stems from a feeling. So creating the feeling of that wish already being fulfilled is how we end up manifesting exactly what we want. That decision fatigue free, easier, more abundant life.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we overcomplicate because we're putting off that wish fulfilled. Like we're scared of the wish fulfilled, so we're going to focus on the minutia and the details of something when really you could be at the wish fulfilled by now. Don't be afraid of it.
Yeah. You have to feel it and live in that frequency and that vibration in order to actually have it come into your reality.
And if anyone listening, if you are an entrepreneur and you're not sure exactly what to focus on to actually make income and start making income, Kyle Gray once said, he's from the UK, and we were at a Hay House conference together in Tampa. And he said, I just went with what my customers seem to gravitate toward and appreciate and purchase and want. And so, if you do a variety of things, you do EFT tapping, you do hypnotherapy. I tend to love both of those things, but if you're not sure where to focus, just see what your clients want.
It's a great thing to do. I always put posts up in my community asking people what they're looking for or what they don't have. Started offering a lot more lower ticket things recently because I realized there was a gap there that people were looking for things and they weren't quite ready or able to afford one-on-one work, but there were things that I could definitely offer that were helpful to them. And we've been releasing things that they've been loving. And I'm like, gosh, why didn't I do this before? Yeah, you got to ask people what they want and give it to them. It's like we don't really need to keep reinventing the wheel. You can, from a business standpoint, you can go out and look and see what other people are selling that's selling well, and then it's like, where's your version of that? Your own unique way that you can bring that to life.
Yeah, because a lot of people want your own unique way. They like you. They trust you. They want something from you.
Absolutely.
So the basis of organization, planners, calendars, do you use an online planner or a paper planner? How do you stay organized? I can't even imagine with 4 boys, your schedule must be really busy with activities. So how do you stay organized just with the nuts and bolts of having a planner and a calendar?
Absolutely. So I used to be like the total planner addict. It's December now when we're recording, which in the old times would have meant I was like going to purchase 2 or 3 different planners to see which one was going to be the one that made the next year work. I don't do that anymore. Actually, there's a whole chapter in my book about my planning process, but it was part of learning how to slow down. And I used to feel very overwhelmed because I had a crazy list that wasn't very organized. And every day I was just trying to pull things off of it and figure out what the priorities were. Now my process is I do have a digital calendar. That's not what I go to though, typically. So I recognize that because of things like, we've got this podcasting appointment today. So that's going to go on a digital calendar because we've organized that digitally. But I always sit down a week before the week that's coming and I spend about an hour. It used to take longer, but take about an hour to look at the week ahead and translate my digital calendar onto, I have a Remarkable tab. So it's like a notebook, but instead of having 50 notebooks like I used to have, it's all just on this one thing, which makes the clutter a lot better. And I actually like writing in what I'm doing on um, pre-made planner sheets, which also come with my book, like that I made for myself because I recognize that, like I said, I wake up at 4 a.m. Find me a planner that actually has 4 a.m. on it. I don't have it. I don't have it. So, and yeah, so I needed a planner that actually had my own hours. So I created one, and I give these sheets with my book, and they're customizable to whatever hours the person keeps because they you create them digitally. But I translate it all over there, and that helps me with figuring out time because if I have to go somewhere, I used to kind of forget that I needed to drive there or however I was getting there, and I would not account for that time very well, and I would be late. But when I actually take the time to write my schedule out, and see that, it's like it makes sense to me, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, okay, so it's going to take me a half an hour to get there. It's going to take me 10 minutes before that to actually like get ready and get out the door, get myself a drink, brush my hair, whatever I need to do. And so then it's all like right there, and it organizes my time much better. And then I have because I'm using the Remarkable, I can keep a list, but not too long of a list, and prioritize things very easily because I can like move them around. I can be like, oh, this is 1, 2, 3 kind of thing. So I prioritize really easily on there, and then I also have like a huge. I just put up a big like year-long calendar whiteboard that I'm looking at on this side, which I've never had before. But like being able to see my whole year at a glance on the wall, I think is going to be immensely helpful. I'll have to let you know how that one works out. But I think sometimes it's easier for me to plan if I can see all of that and recognize like, okay, so I'm doing, these 2 workshops in January. I need to begin advertising 2 weeks ahead. That starts here. I have to do this. I have to do that. And it's all just, I can see it so much clearer when it's all in front of me. So yeah, digital. Yes. My Remarkable saves me every day and helps me to really translate things into doable chunks of time. And then we'll see how this wall calendar goes.
Yeah, you can do both. You can do electronic and paper. That's what I do.
Yeah. I think the combination for me is the win.
I love to set my alarm on my phone. And maybe this is like old news to everybody, but I set my alarm for everything. If I have an 8:30 meeting, I set my alarm for 8:15. I do that
Yep.
all the time. Yeah.
I really have a dozen alarms set every day, probably all the different times. I have, well, my oldest son's out of the house, but the other 3 all have different times they have to wake up and different bus times. And so it's like getting out for all of those things, and then whatever appointments I have with clients or podcasts or other business appointments throughout the day. And then of course there's the times the kids are coming home that I need to be there for different things. And yeah, there's a ton of alarms. Alarms save me. And I love labeling them with things like those questions that we brought up today, like a question that I want to be asking my subconscious mind or my reticular activated system instead of labeling it. Because I normally know what most of them are going off for. It's kind of like, okay, I know it's time to get somebody up. But instead I see a question, like, why is it so easy to get whatever done today? And I see that question, and it sets a good tone in my mind and also reminds me of what I need to do.
I love it. I have one more question, and it's about entrepreneurship because you have got it going on, Theresa, Lear, Levine. I looked at, your posts. You have a podcast, online workshops, and you have a community of over 1,000 people on the school app. So you are good with technology. Any advice for entrepreneurs when it comes to running an online business or working with people virtually in the online world?
Yeah, get help before you think you need it. You made a statement that I'm good with tech, not good with tech. I have a beautiful, brilliant team that helps with all the tech stuff and make sure that that runs smoothly. I'm not bad with tech. I'll give myself credit. Like I can figure a lot of things out, and I do make sure that I understand what's going on. That's another thing that I would definitely suggest too. Even if you're going to delegate out, understand what's happening in your business with the tech or the things that you're delegating, and get help because it's if anybody out there is thinking I'm doing all that by myself and I'm maintaining all of my social media profiles and my school community and my workshops and my podcast and everything else, no, I'm not. I have help. Get help.
I love it. Well, Theresa, Lear, Levine, thank you for being here on the Dissolving Fear podcast. Let everyone know where they can find you online. And I believe we're going to do a little tapping session. So keep an eye out, you guys, everyone here in the podcast. I will send you a link to that as well as a resource.
Yeah, the only place I'll need to go to get that is going to be theprivatesessions.com. When they go there, they will get the session that we're going to do together and access to over 70 other EFT sessions. So really cool. You can download that resource totally free and find a topic that that you want to work on, just press play and a whole video tapping and coaching session will be right there at your fingertips. And other than that, the best place to find me is my website, which is theresalearlevine.com. And from there, just super easy, simple links that you can click on for either upcoming workshops, my school community, whatever. It's all right there on theresalearlevine.com.
Well, that completes our episode. Thank you for being here at the Dissolving Fear podcast. If this podcast content felt true for you, leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or follow this podcast for more. You can explore over 90 episodes and keep exploring your favorite ways to dissolve fear and live your ideal life every single day. Thank you for being here. Visit missalissa.com for one-on-one coaching as well as free resources, upcoming events, and my free monthly newsletter.